Welcome to The Current by TreasureCoast.com, where we discuss interesting people, places, and happenings on Florida's Treasure Coast.
Lauren, how are you? Thanks so much for joining me. You're with Project Lift. You are the Chief Impact Officer, I believe is the title. I appreciate you so much for being on, and I'm really excited to talk about the organization. I'm sure that people have seen Project Lift, or at least have seen the name. Do you want to give a quick overview of who you are and about the organization itself?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity to share our mission with your audience. So, for those who may not be familiar with Project Lift, we are a unique nonprofit organization that uses the skilled trades as the vehicle into a troubled teen or young adult's life. We are at heart a mental health and substance abuse treatment organization. But the best way to describe what we do is therapy underneath the hood of a car. So we have licensed therapists that are working with our students while they are learning hands-on training in automotive repair, welding, carpentry and construction, electrical, all those trades that are really so in demand in our world right now. And I think what we have found with our model is that it really just disrupts the traditional mental health service delivery system and creates a lot of dignity for these young people. It also moves the needle forward with the therapeutic process a lot faster than perhaps a traditional clinical setting. You know, when a young man comes to us and you put a 2,800 degree welding torch in his hand on day one, that's not a traditional treatment center, right? And
Yeah.
it really gets them excited to try what we do.
That's a really interesting point because I've thought about that as well. Where giving, especially when you're young, having something where you're learning, you're growing, you're seeing the fruits of your labor, and finding things that you can really be proud of, um, is really kind of it's powerful for young people. What do you think? Do you want to talk about some of the programs that you have going on first, or is there more you want to say about the
Sure.
organization?
Well, no, I was just going to respond to what you said, and I think you're absolutely right that it's again, it's that dignity factor, and for us, the kids get to actually create something. So, like you said, when they can see the fruits of their labor, when they build, they come to us not knowing really how to do anything in the trades, and then they build a picnic table, or they create an amazing piece of metal artwork, or they build a tiny house, which is something that we do as well. And for them to see that they have created something so big and so important is just a huge piece of that self-esteem building, and that changing the trajectory of their lives and changing their mindset. Because when they come to us, a lot of times they're kind of broken down. A lot of our students are coming from the juvenile justice system. They've been adjudicated, or they've been kicked out of traditional school. They've been through some other programs and they haven't succeeded. And those are the kids we really want. We want the tough kids. We want to meet them where they are and show them that they can be successful. And you asked about programs, so I can go through kind of our different programming. So
Okay.
we run in 2 shifts per day. We serve ages 14 to 24 in 2 different programs. Our morning program is called our Career Rising. That happens from 9 to 2. And that is a program for older teens and young adults, usually in the 17 to 24-year-old age range. If they've either dropped out of high school or they've already completed high school. And if they have dropped out, we have an on-site high school diploma program. So they can get a fully accredited high school diploma while they're with us, which is really important, again, for that dignity piece. And these are typically students that were not successful in a traditional high school environment, either because of maybe mental health issues or they're just not traditional learners. They don't want to go
Yeah.
to college, but that doesn't mean that they can't have a successful and lucrative career. It doesn't mean that they can't learn something valuable. So that program, like I said, is our morning program, and those students are rotating through the high school diploma program, vocational training, mental health therapy, life skills training. We do career work with them. So they're learning how to write a resume. They're learning how to interview. They're learning how to make eye contact, how to show up dressed correctly for that job interview. All of those things that are just as important as those critical job skills. So that's our morning program. And then in the afternoon, we go out to all of the high schools and we pick up students for our after school program. So those are for students that are still enrolled in high school. So they're with us, from about 3 until 6:30, doing all of the same programming with the exception of that high school diploma program because they are enrolled in a local high school. And I think one of the things that's really important to mention that we do is that we do provide transportation for any and all students that need it. So we have programming in Martin County. We have programming in St. Lucie County. We also do serve Palm Beach County. But we will provide transportation for anyone that needs it. And that's critical because we know that getting into those really tough neighborhoods where they don't have a lot of access to resources, if we don't provide that transportation, they're likely not going to find their way to us. So that is
Right.
critical.
How do kids get
So
involved? How do kids decide, or do they reach out, or is there programs within the schools or within the systems that say, hey, look, maybe you're a good fit for Project Lift, or do you find them? Do they apply to you? How does that usually work?
Sure, great question. So it's really a little of all of the above. We get, as I mentioned, we do get referrals from the juvenile justice system as well as the adult drug court, mental health court. We have wonderful relationship with the school systems in both Martin, St. Lucie, and Palm Beach County. So we get a lot of referrals from the school system, from guidance counselors, other nonprofit organizations, mental health providers will refer to us. And then I think the thing that's really unique about our programming is that we get a lot of peer referrals. So I always say we are the only mental health and substance abuse program that you're going to find where kids are referring their friends and telling them to
Right.
come to Project Lift. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is just the incredible things that they get to learn, welding and carpentry and all these cool skills. But the other really important thing to note is that our students are paid for the work that they do. So that morning program, the older students, they're paid $15 an hour for all of the time that they're working in the trades. And again, that's that dignity part. Once again, that we're providing that dignity to them. And it also has to do with destigmatizing the mental health and the substance abuse treatment process. We know that if students come to us and they feel like they are valued and respected and that they're in their place of employment, then it completely changes the way that they approach treatment, right? So
Yeah.
when you come to visit Project Lift, and we invite anyone to come and tour Project Lift, we'd love to have you come out and meet our kids and see the programming. So they come in and they feel comfortable. They want to be there. They feel like they're employed with us and they're valued. And I think that's one of the reasons that we get a lot of peer referrals. But it's really easy for parents or kids to find us and to get enrolled. You can go to our website at projectlift.org. There is an enroll now button. It is super simple. We made it a really brief form to fill out. We know people don't want to take a lot of time. It's brief. You'll get a phone call within 24 hours to come in, check out the program, take a tour, and see if it's the right fit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. I think that with kids, especially, getting paid, and it's almost like it is a real job at that point where you feel valued, you feel, you're not only learning, but you're earning while you're doing it. And I wonder what, in your eyes, I've seen on Facebook where I'm not sure if the correct term would be like graduates, people that have gone through Project Lift, where they've been praised afterwards. I've seen them on Facebook where they're in this industry or that industry, and they had gone through Project Lift, and hey, look, now they're doing this. What do you think? And I think that it's, again, when you say that people are referring their friends, that's a testament to that as well. Once they see that benefit, maybe their friends notice a change or people in their neighborhood notice a change. What do you think? I mean, I know you've got all sorts of different backgrounds, kids, locations. What are your thoughts as far as the different, I guess I would call it like, apprenticeships? Who do you want to get involved? What businesses or people are you looking to get involved that can lend a hand with these kids? Or is the most important thing for people to kind of donate their money? Or how can people best help you?
Sure. So we have a few different ways. So we do have a volunteer mentor program. So our vocational mentors are paid staff members of Project Lift, right? But we do have a lot of volunteers that we on that come in, and they assist our vocational mentors. They're there to be just kind of another role model for our young men and women, another ear for them. There's a kind of a saying in the mental health world that every kid needs one caring adult outside of their family to move the needle for them and to make a difference if they're
Yeah.
struggling. And so, that one caring adult could be that volunteer mentor that comes in once a week for an hour and just works with that student. So we do have those opportunities. And then, yes, we work with a lot of business partners to both train and hire our students. And that's critical to the success of Project Lift. And it's really a win-win situation. We hear a lot from our local businesses in the skilled trades, whether it be construction companies, boat builders, welding, plumbing companies, they are not able to replace the retiring employees that they have right now. The baby boomers are starting to retire. We really got away from training young people in the skilled trades over the last 25 years.
Right.
It became, every student must go to college to succeed. We got away from that. And now we're seeing these businesses, they are in desperate need, and one of the few industries that AI is not going to replace is the skilled trades. We're not
Right.
going to be able
Right.
to replace that with technology. We're going to need plumbers. We're going to need welders. So those industry partners are critical. So yes, if you own a business where you are looking for skilled trade employees, I'm telling you, we have an amazing, group of students constantly that are coming through our program and being trained. And we'd love to connect with you and see how we can help provide a pipeline of employees and how you can help our young people get that critical opportunity.
That's good to know. I think that puts a lot into perspective, at least for someone like me, because I think of it as this big umbrella, and I'm sure it is. There's a lot of different trades that people can get involved in. Can I ask you, just to kind of jump back a little bit, when it comes to things like the after school program, can you talk a little bit about specifically what those kids do compared to maybe like the morning? Of course, in the morning it's probably much more involved. They're getting paid and
Mhm.
they're yeah, but can you talk a little bit more about what they're learning and doing that's, I imagine, setting more of kind of a foundation for what's to come in their future?
Sure, absolutely. So, in our after school program, as far as the trades go, our goal is really to introduce these young people to this platter of opportunities that they may not have ever been exposed to before. And so we do have them rotate through all of our trades. We want them to try everything. Sometimes they come in and they think, no, I want to be a welder. That's what I want to learn. Well, let's try everything and see, where your passion really lies. And with the after school program, we're really teaching kids the basics. I mean, most of these students come to us and they don't know how to read a tape measure, So we're starting, in our carpentry and construction program with really the basics, safety,
Yeah.
how to read a tape measure, how to use, basic tools, the difference between a Phillips head screwdriver and a flathead, all those things that some of these kids don't know. And in a lot of our programs, we see a lot of, especially young men and young women, without a father in the home, right? And they've never had that dad that's taught them how to do any of these things. In our automotive repair program, learning how to change a tire, learning how to, change your oil, those kind of basic things that even if you're a student at Project Lift who doesn't end up going into the skilled trades, how useful is it to know these basic things? I always say to our young women in the program, they may not think that they want to learn automotive repair, but I tell them it is someday you're going to be stuck on the side of the road with a flat tire, and you are going to be so glad that you know how to change
Yeah.
that tire yourself, or that you can do some basic maintenance on your car. And same thing with fixing things around the house, so we're really looking at kind of teaching them those basic skills. And then as they're with us longer, and they're learning more and they're really increasing those skills, they move on to bigger things. They start building. I mentioned earlier that we have a tiny house program. Our students have actually built, I think, 15 full-size tiny houses at this point. And that's just an incredible program where those tiny houses have then been used by other nonprofits to help meet their mission. So Family Promise, which serves homeless families on the Treasure Coast, they have some of our tiny houses where they're able to house homeless families. Operation 300 uses some of our tiny houses. So just some really neat programs. So that's the vocational side of what those students are learning. And then, as I mentioned before, it's a lot of soft skills instruction too. Some of our students have, some behavioral
Yeah.
issues. They're coming with a lot of anger issues. So their therapists are working with them. Every student that comes in has a therapist and an individual treatment plan. So their therapist is working on those skills with them, whatever it is that they may be struggling with. And then we're also teaching them those life skills, those really simple, again, things that they just may not have gotten. There's a lot of talk about this younger generation and a lack of communication skills that probably has to do with having grown up on phones. When they arrive at Project Lift, their phone gets locked in a box and they don't see it until they leave. These kids are
Nice.
not on their phones. And that's critical. And it's interesting because when you see the anxiety and the panic that they have on day one, you really see how addicted these kids are. They are fully addicted. They panic
Right.
so
Yeah.
hard. And I will tell you, by day 3, they forget about it because they're doing cool stuff. They're welding, they're learning stuff, they're using their hands. We're getting back to stuff that I think this generation has really lost because of, being on their phones all day and playing video games all day. So that's a really nice byproduct of the program, is getting them off their phones, using their hands, and communicating again.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of side point to what the kids are going through, is kind of the more technologically hijacked that their life really could be, where some of the things when it comes to you talk about the foundational stuff like changing a tire, but I'm sure there are plenty of kids that come in that, like you said, welding, it's probably not even in the back of their head. Whereas, that could certainly be a more fruitful career than, maybe some more traditional routes. And maybe it's something that more importantly is more fulfilling.
Yeah. It's important, it's important. And you mentioned welding, and just a quick story that I always love to tell is we had a young woman in the program, in the Career Rising program. This is probably 5 years ago now. She came to us and she had some big struggles. She was having some substance abuse issues. She had a lot of trauma in her family, not a good home life. she was really struggling. And so she was referred to Project Lift. And on the first day, she kind of walked around, and she wasn't very happy to be there. And then she saw welding, and she said, I don't know what that is, but I want to do it. And so she really took to welding. We made her try everything, but she became passionate about welding on day one, right? There was something about it that she loved, and she really stuck with it. She graduated our program. She was an incredible welder. She went on to IRSC and got to their welding school there and got certified in welding. And she is now working welding boat towers and making, I mean, an incredible living. And I think that's
awesome.
one of those stories where, this young woman would have never had any clue that that was an option for her. And she was probably the most skilled welder we've ever seen come through our program. So I think that really speaks to just presenting these kids with opportunity, that they otherwise wouldn't be exposed to.
Yeah, it's really interesting that I have a memory of a friend of ours who he got into welding as, all of us, our generation, it was you went to college, you wanted to try to go to college after high school and got into welding. And, we came back and started hanging with, over summer, winter breaks or something. And, he was doing great. He was doing awesome. And maybe for a lot of people, that's not even really a thought that comes to your mind. And I'm sure for someone who maybe your mind's moving a little quick or you're going through different things in your life, the more vocational types of things, it's almost meditative, because you got to focus on what you're doing and you do it right. And your mind is on that task. And compared to, there's plenty of things that, you can do on your computer. You're sending some emails, you go over to Facebook, or you're doing this. Okay. You go over to, you're constantly kind of back and forth to different things. It really doesn't fly if you've got to weld a boat tower. So I could see how there's a lot of one hand shakes the other.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And we see a lot that these kids that have been like labeled ADD or OCD and told that they, are just not going to be successful in a classroom or here or there. They do great in welding or in the trades. It's like you said, it's kind of like some of those things that have been labeled as detriments for them really can flip and become assets in the skilled trades.
Right.
And it gives them that opportunity to really focus and zone in. And we find that kids like that are actually very successful in the trades.
That's awesome. Do you want to talk about some of the events that you all have going on? I know that you've got some annual events, and you've got a business gala coming up. It's a ball that's coming up, but then you've got some annual events that are pretty recurring. Do you want to talk about those at all, or would you? Is that worth covering?
Yeah, okay. No, I'd love it. I mean, we are, as I mentioned, we are a nonprofit organization. We really operate because of the generosity of the community. And as you can imagine, Project Lift is a very expensive program to run when you're talking about the level of equipment that we need to run welding programs and carpentry and construction. And then not only paying all of our staff, but paying the students. It's an expensive program. So we do rely on, grants and donations and events. And so we do have some really fun annual events coming up soon here. Actually, on November 20th is our Blue Collar Ball. And that is the event that you were referring to. And that's going to be in Fort Pierce at 500 Orange. We do have, I think, 10 to 20 tickets left for that. You can find that at projectlift.org under events. Really fun event, just like come as you are. Our theme for that is, if you want to get dressed up like a typical gala, go for it. We welcome that. Or if you're the guy that just clocked out of your plumbing job and you want to just show up the way you are, we embrace that too. That's who we are at Project Lift. Come have a good time no matter what.
Nice.
So that's going to be a fun event. We've got the Tom Jackson Band, which is a phenomenal local country band that's really great. They've done a lot of recording in Nashville. They're awesome. And then we have an annual event in January, also in Fort Pierce, super fun. It's called the Lumberjack Fest. Again, Project Lift does events a little different. We like to find kind of unique things to do. So our Lumberjack Fest is in January. I believe it's January 24th. It's a family-friendly daytime event. Bring the kids. We have a chicken wing eating contest that is like super competitive. People get really into it. It's a lot of fun. We have pie eating contests for the kids. We have some cool lumberjack type of demonstrations going on, and just a great time. And then in April, we have our largest annual fundraiser, which is the Project Lift Clam Bake. This is going to be our 15th annual clam bake. It's a great time. We usually have about 400 people. That's at our Hope Sound location. It is like an incredible seafood feast. We do hermit crab racing. We do all kinds of fun stuff. And we would just love for the community to check out those events on our website. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and learn about how you can get involved.
That sounds great. Well, Lauren, I appreciate you being on. I really, it was fun to get to talk to you, and hopefully this will kind of shine the light and maybe give a little bit more of an overview for people who have or haven't seen Project Lift, and they can find ways to get involved. We can include links to like your socials and the website. That way, if people want to learn about the events or how to get involved, I'm pretty sure that we've been putting, the Lumberjack, Lumberjack Fest. I don't know if we had in our calendar. I know we've had the clam bake we usually put in our event calendar, but we'll add those as well, just so that if people want to know about it, they can see it. And if they want to go over to projectlift.org, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And maybe they can learn some more, but I appreciate you being on, and anything that we can do to help, always here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity and for all that you guys do to, spread the good work of organizations in this community. It's appreciated.
Oh, that's what we're here for. Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Current by treasurecoast.com. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Follow us on social media or visit treasurecoast.com for local events, tips, and news. Have a guest or topic you'd love to hear on the show? Let us know at treasurecoast.com. Until next time, keep riding the current and enjoying everything the Treasure Coast has to offer. See you soon.